Kicking off hour number 2 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lula, we've got our friend Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
Good. Life is good.
We're hanging in there.
I can't. So, BC, I know I saw you in there. What was the media lunch Saturday or whatever it was, dinner?
It
you
was
remember?
I think it was pulled pork. I didn't have any.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You didn't eat?
I heard it was pretty good though, so that's not me taking a shot at it. That was what Mike Schaefer told me. But
that's funny because he got his plate knocked out of his hand. I felt awful.
I saw that. It wasn't you, was it? Were you
No.
were you book checking him? Were you book checking him?
No, actually, for how he owned Ravi yesterday, Ravi probably would have been the one that would have got at him. But
wow.
No, I'm teasing. No, I'm just serious. Actually, it was on accident. It was Mike Babcock. But we were talking.
Babcock.
Yeah, we were talking to Shafe, and Mike Babcock's elbow accidentally got Shafe. And the only thing that made it bad was he kind of cleaned up the pulled pork pretty quick, but there was like that coleslaw or whatever that was. And that kind of went all over the carpet. So I think Shafe was kind of mortified, but it was all good.
I like to think Babbers did that intentionally. I know he did because
he's so cool.
He's
right?
the nicest guy in the world, but
he really is.
Also the greatest Husker historian around. So if you ever need information about the Gotham Bowl or anything, he's there for me.
Do you eat on game day?
Oh, yeah. Most of the time. I just had I don't know. I didn't arrange my schedule right. So I had a late lunch at home and I came over from mowing the lawn. Actually, it was kind of, I was like, I got a good sweat going before I I did take a shower before I got in there. But yeah, I didn't eat there though on Saturday, but
nothing will top mashed potatoes and meatloaf like they had in Minneapolis. I couldn't believe they had that in August. I'm like, what are we doing?
That's a November meal.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Joe Clatt and those guys, they loved it. It was like, ugh.
I didn't like the meatloaf. Yeah, it wasn't very good.
Some people called it mystery meat. I saw chunks of corn in there. I was like, what is going on?
I also like I do like cinnamon roll and chili, so I don't want to get like knocked out of the state, but I think the hype has reached a point where we can bring it down a couple notches.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Madonna.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Calm it down. BC, you're kind of listening to these pressers, and I do think Nebraska literally, well, I know they did, literally had open tryouts, right, for the running back spot.
Yeah.
Just to see if there were some guys that can play. Like, realistically, how many do you think they'll need, right? I know you're extrapolating, but you got to think you need 4 serviceable bodies, right? Is that at a minimum?
To get through the rest of it, yes, I would say at least 3, and 4 is probably the ideal number. And so that's where young Quentin Ives enters the picture, listed at 185. Satterfield says he's above that now. I know they like his explosiveness and a lot of things about him, but I thought the Satterfield quote was a good one about you got to know what you're doing there, otherwise you're going to get somebody killed. You know, like, I mean, in protection. And so I think
they may have to. So if they want to get guys on the field, though, it's up to them to simplify that protection too, though.
Yes. So that'll be part of the deal, but that also spoke to the challenge ahead, I think, at that spot. And
look out.
Also, why you can't take for granted, like, sometimes, you know, like you look at Ramir's stat sheet when he was playing and maybe like touched his ball 4 or 5 times, but you think about how much that guy has built up in knowledge and like pass protection, just X's and O's understanding. Same with Gabe Ervin. So, I mean, it's a huge loss. I got to say, it's not like Gabe and Ramir are the greatest Huskers that have ever played here or anything. But on Monday, when he announced both of them were out, since I've been covering it, for one position group to get nailed with the top 2 guys on the same day in an offense like this, where they want to grind it out for 4 quarters, it was as significant of an injury day as I've reported on since I've been here. I know, and I've done a bunch of camp stories in August where some big guy who's important goes out with an ACL or something. But I mean, both those guys at the same time, it got quiet in that room in a hurry when he said that.
And unless he was fibbing, which I don't think he was, but I talked to Coach Barthel for probably 10 minutes in the players' lounge after. This is like 10 o'clock almost.
Mhm.
And I think he felt kind of optimistic. I'm not so sure they knew the severity right away.
I don't know that they did. I do wonder if Rhule had an inkling that it could be a problem, because I thought, we don't know what he's like yet after games. Maybe this is just his normal way. I thought he was a little subdued in the post game, considering
Good read.
the first win, and he mentioned a lot of people in the press box, because you're coming down from the elevator in a blowout, especially the last 5 or 6 minutes, so you don't see some of those plays. I don't think a lot of people even knew Gabe got hurt.
Right.
And so he kind of mentioned it, and you're like, yeah, that'll, big deal, 1 week thing or something. And yeah, so Monday that hit like a ton of bricks. So, Anthony Grant, though, I've always thought has the highest end of any of them. I do believe that. And now it's just a matter of can he execute that, and can he be that guy who makes the proper reads on some of those runs, and can be a north-south guy when you're supposed to be a north-south guy. So that's the big test.
BC, you mentioned Anthony Grant, Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives. You said 4 guys. Who do you think? I mean, is it like Trevor Lubin in that 4 spot? Who do you see as viable options to kind of be that 4th guy?
Wish I could get my guy Isaiah Harris back.
Yeah. He still lives on as a Husker in Pro Football Focuses. They give all Liebentritt snaps to Isaiah Harris, but so Isaiah Harris has a good PFF grade, I think, right now on the Nebraska side.
Oh, BC, I love you, man.
That's true.
I'm a little, as you know, I'm a little shaky on PFF.
Yeah.
I'm a little shaky.
So am I. People like seeing it, and I always I throw like a snarky remark in everything I write with PFF, because I'm like, if you believe in this stuff, sort of. I'm not a big fan of their ratings, but they do get the snap counts mostly.
I just like the snap counts.
Yeah.
I just want to know the numbers.
I just want to tell people it's not like Chris Collinsworth himself is actually sitting down doing those PFF grades for you. But I guess Lubin would be the 4th guy that I know of.
That's weird too, because I've always liked him, probably as a person, but yeah, he's a great kid too.
Yeah, I can't say I know a lot about his game. I saw his, he's always that guy who comes up as he's doing the right things, and you saw him bust off a carry there and at the end, and he looked good. And so we'll see. I am really intrigued when we do get the Quentin Ives experience, whatever that looks like. I don't know if it's this week or whenever, but just as you would think, maybe if they could get a lead in this game, which I'm not saying is going to happen, but if they can build it, you might get a few snaps from him.
Blessing in disguise, another blessing in disguise with that injury and the emergence of some consistency at quarterback potentially is you may see more quarterback carries.
Yeah, that could be. And I mean, I like, Heinrich he's going to take it on just like Anthony Grant likes to hit guys when he gets the ball. And Rhule was interesting on that too. He's like, once in a while he could maybe not just like try to run into him as hard as he does. But I think that's going to be his game. And I thought, for a first start, considering the circumstances, I thought he played really well. Like he met my expectations for the night. I thought he only had 1 pass where it was really sort of a cringy pass, and the rest of them I thought all had some purpose to them. So I thought he played well. And as a runner, he's a fierce guy. You definitely are. You can tell, like, 2nd and 3rd level guys do not really want to tackle him.
BC, do you think we're going to see a little bit more of the fullbacks we've heard so much about as an active part of the offense rather than just as blockers, and maybe see those snap counts elevate a little bit as well for those guys? Because for all they were talking about, we haven't seen them a ton in the offense yet.
Yeah, that's a good question, Robbie. I wonder because, Satterfield mentioned yesterday, like, we got to get our personnel groupings right to make sure you have the best guys on the field. And I just think that Liebentritt is one of the better guys so far, the way he's played. So he is somebody who I would think you might see get some more snaps. We'll see on that, but that's definitely a good thing to watch.
BC, when you're talking about, so, we heard Coach Rhule say, listen, those mistakes are still out there. the pressures, the leverage from Manning, like he kind of walked through those deals. It keeps Nebraska sharp, obviously, in coaching, but how much more room for growth do you think statistically, well, not just statistically, but that Nebraska can have defensively in terms of, we know it's in the non-con, even though they played a couple Power Fives outside of Minnesota, but as conference play looms, can this defense get better, in your opinion, incrementally and have it show up statistically?
Yeah, I think it can show up in the takeaways. Everything else is really salty, stats wise. I think the pass defense, as Ty Robinson mentioned in that quote when I was coming on, I feel like they believe they can get more pressure with just like their front four, and that's a goal. The thing I like is that Rhule spent 1.5 to 2 minutes talking about all the things they can get better on defense Monday. And this was at a point when everybody is really patting them on the back and really talking about everything great they did. And they did play really well Saturday. But I think it's a group that is going to always be sort of perfectionist from the type of guys they have. And I'm not just trying to curry favor with them or anything. I just think that's like how Ty Robinson is, how Luke Reimer is. And so I don't think they're satisfied yet. I do think they're the type of players that look at film and they see like, this worked for us on this play, but I see where it could have worked for them. And when you have players like that, they're always seeing what could have went wrong, even when things went right for you, you're in a pretty good spot.
It's interesting how, well, let me just ask you, who surprised you the most along the D-line in terms of their development?
I did not. I'll start really simple with the guys at the top right now. Nash. I did not think Nash was going to be like this.
Hey, remember, we almost left him for dead, didn't we? We were such haters. It was like,
he's going to be a bust. Oh, that Nash.
You guys pretty good.
I like that imitation of whoever it was.
I don't even know who that is.
That?
I just made that up. I don't. I'm sorry, guys. Apologize.
I thought Nash was going to be okay. Like, a guy who you can put out there and he's steady. I did not think he was going to necessarily yet be someone who could wreck shop as much as he has so far early in this season. So I would start with him. I know he didn't play a lot on Saturday because of the injury, and hopefully he's back this week. But Cam Lenhart, I mean, I thought he'd be okay again, but as a true freshman, he's exceeded my expectations early in the year. Really, the answer to that question to me, though, Damon, would be the fact that I haven't noticed significant drop off when they shuttle guys in and out. So that's the thing, like, because that's what I always brought up was like, yeah, okay, they got 3 or 4 guys you might feel okay about. Well, what about like guys 5 through 8 or 9? And those guys have been good. Ruquan Buckley, when he got in at late in the game, I know it's the end and Northern Illinois probably wants to go home at that point, but I mean,
they drove the ball a little bit and he still looked good.
Yeah, Bruns was next to me on the sideline and I wasn't paying total attention because I was trying to fix my story on my phone at the end of the game. And this is the stuff that's happening with 6 minutes left. You don't even see what happens last. But Ruquan Buckley's just, they can't stop him. And so I looked up and sure enough, next play, he's causing problems. So that good for him. We heard about him in the offseason, guy who had hardly played here. And people thought he'd be a portal guy, and he's a leader in that room now.
He makes the all new body team, probably. Like if there was a team of a list of guys that
like transformations
makes the all new body transformation team, Ruquan is up there.
Corey Campbell knows what he's doing, doesn't he?
He's a stud. I just like talking to him because I feel like I lost 6 pounds by what he says. Right? It's like he's the eternal optimist too. He just understands how the body works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always say it's funny in the off season when the new strength coach is here because everybody tries to, a lot of people like me have no idea what is being said or all about that. Like, it's like, okay, I'm going to let this 165-pound guy tell me something about, that's me, tell you something about, the weight room and how that should work and all that. But I tell you what, you see their bodies over there. It's just, it's different. And I believe in what he's doing just from what my eyes tell me.
BC, more surprised by the depth and lack of drop off on the defensive line or in the linebacker group?
To me, it's probably the D line, but that's a good question too. That is, I had so many doubts about the 5 through 8, like in the D line, but linebacker, I just love how some guys I didn't know about either popped up. Javen Wright is playing really good, and Mekhi Bayer. I mean, Bayer is another guy. They said as much. He was basically like, "Do you need me around?" Like when the coaches first got here, sort of like that was his mentality. This is
Yeah.
a guy.
Do you even want me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you watch him, and he's so confident. And the thing I love so far the most about this staff, and I know everybody's like, yeah, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, but I'll go to things like Bayer on special teams against Minnesota runs down, goes through 2 or 3 guys, makes that stick that's just so great. And this is a type of staff that sees plays like that, and they're like, we got to get like I think the idea was already building like that he was going to play defensive snaps, of course, but it's like we just got to go with that. Look at this guy wants it, he's hungry, and they don't I guess hesitate sometimes to go with an idea or take a chance on something when a guy has put some evidence in front of him, like give it a shot. They did that with Bayer there. They did it with Haarberg as a QB. There's examples with like John Bullock. You can go through this roster and name off like 7 or 8 guys they've done that with. And if you look at most of those guys, they're batting a pretty good average on those situations.
BC, let's be honest, because you were with me. I was with the 24/7 posse in Minneapolis in the press box. And remember when they announced that Nick was not going to play, and we were kind of talking about who was next up at inside linebacker, and I'm included. Was anybody comfortable with Javen Wright playing inside? Do you remember that little scuttlebutt when we were trying to figure out who's next?
Yeah,
I was like, there's no way. Like, he's going to be on the outside of that crew, not on the inside. But he's like they casted a vision, and he's flourishing.
Yeah, they're like I said, they're doing well at when they've moved guys. Those guys have really taken to the challenge, and for whatever reason, it's working out way more than it's not. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 that hasn't, but I mean, you could think of like AJ Rollins moving to the defensive line and how that's played out. And before that car accident, Brody Tagovailoa was going to play a lot of snaps. Like they loved what he was doing. But yeah, Javen Wright, I feel so good for him. I remember when he was in high school, and he was a cornerback and a big cornerback, but talking to his dad Toby about like how they went through ever since he was 3 or 4 years old. I'm sure like Caleb was the same way, but like jumping over in ottomans and like doing stuff in the living room, like going over plays and stuff like that. It's just like this is a kid who was meant to play this game for a while at a high level with his athleticism and what he knows through his father and all that. And it was just injuries that kept getting in the way. Every time it seemed like something was going to happen. Everybody around here remembers that practice, I think, where it went viral, where he like one-handed a catch on a long pass at some spring. And it was cool for people to see that because that's like the type of freak athlete he is. And it gave him a visual of that. And now at least we're getting to see it more consistently.
BC, you mentioned Haarberg as one of the guys that had shown something that gave them confidence. I think a lot of people would argue the opposite because he wasn't given a chance sooner before Sims got hurt. But can you kind of help give us the context here? Because Rhule mentioned that, or I think it was Rhule mentioned earlier that, there were parts of the year he was in 3rd or 4th string. Obviously, he's come on quick in terms of elevating himself from moving positions possibly to showing as a serviceable starting quarterback. Can you just kind of provide the context for how far he's actually come?
Yeah, well, that's good to note because it is a deal where the way the staff, or as it was explained this week, especially laid it out to him was, give it a shot at quarterback. Of course, within that Rhule said, if I don't think it's working out, I'm going to come to you and move you, so he still had to go out there and prove that he had the tools, could put in the work and process things. And I think, pretty quickly he showed them in the spring that he was going to take this as seriously as possible, and that he was somebody who they needed to at least, have in the conversation, because even a week into spring ball, he was one of the guys they brought up to the media, which I always think has some meaning. You don't just bring guy who's, whatever, fourth team or that. So I think he had established that he was probably one of the top 3 guys. And then it seems like he was kind of ahead of Purdy at some point in the middle of spring. And then Purdy kind of came back at the end of spring and sort of tied it up. And then he got tweaked. And so Haarberg's ahead of him now. But I was worried about how the passing game would look with him, because I still had the spring game visions in my head, and we don't see all the other practices. And so I think he exceeded the fans' expectations in game 1 with just how in control he was with his decision making there. And I don't mind if a guy throws a bad ball and it's just off on a player or two. What is tough to watch is when you feel like a quarterback throws like 5 or 6 in harm's way that should go, be picked off. And I didn't feel that in the first game. So that was a really nice start in that way. I knew he would run like that. He's always had that. I remember when he was at Kearney Catholic, he was a guy who wanted to run, I think 10-7, 10-8 or something, the 100. And we're talking about a huge dude here. He had size 17 shoes.
He's got to have like a 18.5-inch neck.
Yeah, he's a huge dude, and he's a really nice kid too. Just soft spoken, but I'm sure he has it when he needs it. But so he always had those tools where it's like, this guy's kind of a freak, but like, where do you put him? But I'm glad that he's doing it at QB right now, because he spent a lot of time as a high schooler working on it. He would go to Denver and work with a QB coach and stuff like that when he could. So he's always been serious about it. And Justin Herbert is the name he would always use, because they were kind of the same size. I'm not saying to be him, but he just he liked that Herbert, if you remember, used to get ragged on at a kind of a different level, but like he wasn't
Robbie's favorite quarterback. That's why I'm laughing.
Come on.
Stop. You love Herbert.
He would always say, though, like he was a guy who everybody said wasn't going to do it and couldn't be successful at his level. And so I think he always liked that story.
That's Brian Christopherson,
DC,
Husker 24/7. Great stuff today, Brian. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks,
guys. Thanks, guys.
Want to remind you about our friends at Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's their mission to support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. Go to mentoromaha.org to sign up to become a big. And don't forget, they carefully match their bigs and littles, and they have support throughout the process. mentoromaha.org. Kevin Suits coming up next.